Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, Liz. Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Payne. Here. Campion.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Howard. Here. We'll have a few seconds for a silent prayer and then the flag salute by Boy Scout Troop 119.
Color guard attention. Color guard advance. Color guard prepare to post colors. Post colors. Audience, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Afterwards for the next 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Guilty.
Liz, would you please read the video statement? This meeting of the Galt City Council is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Comcast and SureWest cable systems. Tonight's meeting can be seen on Channel 14 and will also be webcast at www.saxmetrocable.tv this Friday and Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Tonight's meeting can also be seen via live video streaming on the city's website at www.ci.galt.ca.us. A DVD copy is also available for checkout from any library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address council should fill out a speaker identification form and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing council and state your name for the record. Thank you, Liz. Is there any agenda approval, additions, and/or deletions, council?
I'm pulling E3 for discussion, please.
Okay.
I'd like to pull 4 and 5.
Madam Mayor, if council is done, I also would like to just point out there was an error in your packet, and there was a late addition. You should have received a handout related to item E3, which is Exhibit A, which was supposed to be attached to the agreement. So just for the record that is an insert for anyone who might have obtained the packet prior to that insertion.
Okay. Cruz or Singleton, anything for you guys? Okay.
No.
Then we'll get on with the presentation, the Parks and Recreation Galt Market.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Kimberly Polson. She's the Market Operations Supervisor. She handles basically the day-to-day operations at the market. She's been with the city for over 10 years and does a great job for us. And I'm going to turn that over to her now to give the presentation.
Good evening. This is my first time with you guys, so bear with me. Hopefully I get through it. Basically, I'm here to speak about the market. I decided to give a little bit of the history and how we've evolved into the market that we are today. The Galt Market began before the city incorporated, and farmers and ranchers started to kind of gather in a field just to sell what they had to the local residents. The gathering happened weekly, and as people heard about it, it continued to grow. More and more people came, and more products started to be sold weekly. When the Sacramento County Fair was established in 1937, it was in the city of Galt, which is now the market grounds. It was known as the County Fair and Horse Show, and what you see there is a plaque just kind of showing from 1945 one of the awards that were given out. Various improvements were made to the land, and that included a racetrack and some horse barns and other animal pens. And the county fair remained in Galt until relocating in 1954. What you see here is proposed plans for the upgrades that they put for the fairgrounds. It has a rodeo arena and racetrack and horse pens, or horse barn. At one point, I believe in the 70s, the barns were used for the sale of produce as well, once the horses were gone. Not at the same time. As the county fair and horse show was being held, when most of the year it was not being occupied by the fair, so local farmers and ranchers were allowed to continue to use the land on a weekly basis. In 1953, the racetrack grandstand was condemned by the state as being unsafe, so the county fair was offered the use of the state fairgrounds, which is Cal Expo, and they accepted. With the merger of Cal Expo and the fair, the property in Galt was no longer needed and was declared surplus by the state. The picture you see here is a building that is on the grounds where the Cibola Center is now. And at one time, that building was also used to sell produce out of. When the fair left, they left a vacant property. Weeds and that grew, and buildings became in disrepair. So the citizens of Galt, as well as staff, wanted to obviously change that. It wasn't good for the city. So they worked with what was now known as the 52nd District Agricultural Association and worked to get control of the land, believing that would be an asset to the city. The vacant property was then, through their hard work, deeded to the city in 1969. In 1982, Assembly Bill 3773 was introduced to amend the deed of 1969. AB 3773 set forth that the City of Galt may conduct a city-operated flea market on the property, with the condition that rent will be utilized solely for park and recreation purposes in the city. This is what the actual bill is in its entirety. And what's interesting about this legislation is it pertains solely to the City of Galt. It is special that no other city in California is allowed to operate a flea market. Due to the stipulations in AB 3773, all revenue generated by the market is put into the 06 Culture and Recreation Fund. This revenue allows the City of Galt to operate quality parks and recreation programs at a reduced cost to the citizens. The Galt Flea Market, which is what the weekly sale became known, continued to grow through the years, and with the adoption of AB 3773, the City of Galt could now develop the property and create a permanent home for the Galt Flea Market. One of the biggest changes came in 1989 when the market went from operating on dirt to paving over a portion of the grounds. This enabled vendors to sell year-round and not get stuck in the mud. What you see here is an early conceptual drawing of what the community park, including the market grounds and sports complex, may have looked like if that was passed. Obviously, it's a little different now. In 1995, the market was officially named the Galt Market, as approved by City Council. They decided to drop flea out of the name to present or to bolster the market's image as a wholesale and retail destination, and was a part of a larger marketing plan. From 1995 to 2006, the market was a popular destination for small businesses to buy at the Tuesday wholesale market and for small businesses to sell at the Wednesday retail market. In the past, minimal advertising was utilized or needed. Everybody in the area kind of just knew about the market. It had a good reputation, so it's best to be known for the good reputation, not a bad reputation. Basically, there was 2 billboards on northbound 99 at one time, and we utilized radio ads and a variety of print advertising in the local papers. As things change over the years, the Galt market has undergone changes to deal with the challenges faced by the flea market industry as a whole. The Tuesday market was once only wholesale and retail of new items, but today we have recently expanded our produce market and created a limited area for used vendors to sell. The Wednesday market was once mostly used items with a large produce area, and today we still welcome new and used vendors, but also encourage Galt residents and nonprofits to sell with a special rate just for them. And we continue to have a thriving produce market on Wednesdays. Our current marketing includes focusing on the TV in Sacramento and Stockton markets. KCRA 3, CW 31, and Univision 19 primarily run commercials in the morning during morning news. Crossings TV is a multicultural channel with programming targeted to a variety of cultures in the area and that come from looking for people or citizens that come from countries where outdoor markets are their primary ways to shop. TV is currently our best value for advertising dollars as it reaches a large and diverse segment of the population. But we feel like we really need to do more. Currently, the market uses the city logo, which is a great logo for the city, but it doesn't bring to mind the Galt market when you see it. Market staff has been looking at different ways that we could brand the market. As examples are shown here. We'd like to use one of these logos for future branding, marketing, and advertising of the market. The logos were created to reference the City of Galt logo, but provide the market with its own fresh, modern, and recognizable identity. Our future marketing plans is geared towards the internet, where a lot of things we can do on there are for free or little to no cost to the city. In order for the market to have its own identity, we need to have a website that's accessible by mobile phones, as most of our customers are out there using that, and a regular website doesn't translate. We also would like to have a Facebook page and Twitter account for customers and vendors to be able to offer feedback, which is much needed. For staff to let the public know about current information that's happening, such as the weather or products offered, and to notify the public about special events being held on the market grounds. Another place for free advertising is YouTube. We can post the current commercial and create other market-themed videos. You never know, we could have the next great viral video. The possibilities are endless, and the market staff is excited to create a buzz about this family-friendly, community-centered market, the Galt market. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for letting me talk at your meeting.
That was really good. Thank you very much. I like seeing the history.
Not bad for a first timer.
Yeah.
Thank you. A lot to get in. It is kind of interesting to see where we started and kind of where we want to go. And, you know, obviously going from the vacant lot to what we have today, it's a great accomplishment for the city.
Tax or question?
Sure.
Ask you a question real quick. Give it back. Have you checked out the costs, or maybe Mondo has, for the Facebook advertising and all that good stuff, or?
Well, Facebook, to have a page, it's free. Staff would have to monitor the page, you know, so there would be some staff time involved. But we do not have hard numbers on that at this time.
What about those who don't Facebook, such as myself. How do you just plan, is that why you need a website of your own?
Yes, we basically want to have everybody be able to access us, and right now, a large portion of the population utilizes their mobile phone. A lot of people use Facebook, a lot use Twitter, but you're correct, a lot don't. So we still want to advertise on TV, and kind of create some other, just get into all different areas, especially if it's free. It doesn't cost anything, and it gets our name out there.
And just in my opinion, I like the middle thing of your
Logo.
the logo. Thank you. Yeah, I like that middle one. That kind of says everything about the market. That's pretty cool.
I think it's a good idea to come up with a branding for the market. And
I agree.
And I agree with Councilman Singleton
Yeah,
on
I
the
like it.
center one. I think it would be very beneficial.
I like the produce and fresh vegetables sitting down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm glad to hear you guys say that, because we really want to get people to know about us. Sometimes I'm not from the area, so I learned about the Galt market when I started working here, and it's, you hear about, oh, what is the Galt market? And, you have an opportunity to tell a lot of people about it, and you just, want to get back to a place where everybody just knows about us. And we're not there right now, so we'd like to just get our name out there. And
Well, most of us don't bite, so you can always ask us.
Okay,
Quick
Council?
question, just
Oh,
quick
I'm sorry.
question. How and when will the branding decision be made on this?
Now you can have it, Armando.
Actually, this was our test. We wanted to get feedback on the logos, and I'm going to be working with Jason on moving forward with it. Just trying to show everybody at once, get feedback, and we both agree that middle one is also the one that we liked. I really like the Galt Market one with the water tower because it embraces our past, but it really doesn't say anything about the market as it is, where the middle one does talk about our produce and an early morning market with the sunrise.
Okay, we'll take a little straw poll. Councilmember Payne, which one did you like?
I like the middle one also.
Okay, and how about you, Councilmember Cruz?
It pops. I like
Yeah.
that middle one.
No, it's 5-0 for the middle one, just so you know.
So there you go.
There you go. Okay, what do you think, Liz?
Just in case you need direction.
Just wanted your opinion, that's all.
That's direction, too.
It was a very good presentation as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was
Thank you.
very nice, thank you. Okay, now public comment, please, Liz.
Okay. Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may also address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council and limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the City Clerk. Al Baldwin.
Al Baldwin, one of the concerned citizens of Galt, community of character, which is really growing. And the bird on the left, I don't know the kind of bird it is, I was wondering. Anyway, getting onto this, I want to thank I have to say the City Council, because I didn't see but one person there, but the schools had a wonderful tip a teacher promotion at Brewster's, and it was a great dinner. It was extremely good turnout. The people that came there were teachers that waited on tables, but we had the kids, we had the parents, we had I know at least one city person there, and the food was wonderful. The atmosphere was just great, and the contribution to the libraries in Galt for the elementary school was over $5,000 in just donations, not the food. We didn't get nothing out of the food. It was just the donations that the people made that sat and ate that wonderful food at Brewster's. And I just want to thank one, because I was there, I'd say 70% of the time, but I could have missed somebody the other 30%. But the only one I saw there from the city was Jason Berman and his family, and it was wonderful. And I got their pictures, and I got it on a DVD, and he's going to enjoy that for years. Now, it was good. I just wanted to thank the city for giving a showing there. It was wonderful. The second thing, real quick, is that this Saturday we're having an extravaganza. I think I said it somewhat correctly. It's going to be from 10 to 2. Now, Galt's getting to be known for this. It happens on Saturday, this coming Saturday, and they're going to have an egg drop, which is a raw egg that a lot of people in town think they can drop something from maybe 30 feet or 40 feet or something like that high in a container and it won't break. You got to see it to believe it. Last year it did happen, but you got to see this thing to really get into it. Also, some pie eating contest. I can't remember. I think it was citizens, but I think somebody was challenging the police department to see if they could get their faces dirty in these pies. But I don't know if they'll do that. You know, and they're a pretty clean operation, and you know they don't want to get dirty. But we do have that, a parade, a car show, nice, beautiful cars, and you'll see music, you'll have fun, there'll be crafters out there. I tell you, it's going to be just wonderful. It's going to be from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Saturday, and I don't think you can miss it. So if you're out there somewhere in Wonderland, Sacramento, or that other town south of us, Lodi, you got to come down to, or come up to Galt, or come down from Sacramento to really enjoy this town. This town is really looking good, very positive. The weather's going to be perfect. The rain tomorrow is cleaning all the dust out and all the pollen, so you're going to be able to breathe and you won't have to worry about allergies. So come out this Saturday from 10 to 2 to Galt, to Old Town Galt, just at the end of C Street by the railroad tracks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Jean Davenport?
I'm Gene Davenport. I live in the city of Galt, and I want to start off by saying I can't believe I agree with you, but I like the middle one too. But that being said, I want to ask a question. After the last meeting, I'm just wondering if anybody other than Leanne McFadden or Kelly Kagi should apply for that position on the planning commission, because it seems like you guys had your minds made up last week. You really did.
No one has said anything about their mind.
If you go back and look at the meeting last week, the way you guys interacted, the way you talked, it seemed like those were the only two names you guys were even throwing out there. So,
Well,
I'm bringing it up because I thought it was just disingenuous to the process. I really do. That being said, I just wanted to bring that up. But I also wanted to take time to thank the Parks and Rec Department. Last week I went in to get an application for an event, and I passed out. And I have no idea what happened, but they made me sit down. He called the 911, and they came and took me, and I was in the hospital for a week. They still don't know what it is, but I was out of your hair for a week. But I wanted to thank the Parks and Rec, really, for you know, sitting me down and making me stay, because I was wanting to get up and leave. And I'm really lucky that he made me stay, because I think it did a lot for me being able to be here tonight and be sarcastic about things. But I just wanted to bring that up. So I wanted to thank Parks and Rec. Thank you very much. But I was sincere in my question. All right. Thank you, guys.
Well, I hope I figure it out. Yeah.
that's all the sticker sheets I have. Okay, that's all the sticker sheets. So now we're going to go.
Anybody?
Okay. We're going to go to the information and consent calendar. We'll start with number 3, Councilmember Payne.
Do you want to read it first?
Okay.
Number 3, approval of amendment number 1 to the agreement with Parsons Brinkerhoff for Central Gulf Interchange Construction Management Services.
Okay, and this is about a request for an additional $103,000. Considering the whole cost of the interchange, that's not necessarily a lot of money, but I'd like to find out why and how we got to the point where we need to pay an additional $103. So my first question was on the first page, the last paragraph. It talks about contract claims related to environmental constraints were experienced shortly after construction began. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on those items.
Madam Mayor, this item is indeed to at the end of the project to come back as we're trying to close the project out and ask for an additional $103,000 in the contract amendment. And since it precedes me, and actually it precedes Gwen Owens, our deputy director, but she's been our project manager since 9 months before I got here. So I've asked her to prepare a quick overview of some of the issues that were related to initial contract delays and how that impacted Parsons Brinkerhoff ability to perform their job on time and within budget.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with basically at the beginning of the project and go past the actual claim that we talked about. Basically at the beginning of the project there was a bid protest. The bid protest resulted in the construction contract being delayed. With that, the first working day of the contract was supposed to be December 6th. Because the construction start date was delayed, Tykert had claimed that these delays should result in a winter suspension because the winter conditions restricted their ability to work within a drainage area. The drainage area had permit requirements time frame wise on when the work could actually be done by the resource agency. This issue combined with wet weather resulted in a restart date of March 1st, 2011. The bid protest and the restart date resulted in approximately 7 months delay. These delays then resulted in the construction project going into another winter, thus further delaying the project. Originally, PB's contract was negotiated for a 24-month period. It was a fee-based contract, and it assumed a start date of August 2nd, 2010, and a completion date of March 14th, 2012. PB's contract was aggressively negotiated without any contingencies for delay or extra work. The construction project was delayed approximately 11 months due to all of the delays. During that time frame, PB has proactively managed personnel to minimize financial impacts to the city. When PB staff was not needed for a specific task, they were reassigned to another project. Additionally, throughout the project, as PB has moved more expensive staff off the project when they were not needed. For example, when a structural inspector was not needed anymore, that person was replaced with a lower cost inspector. PB has been professional, responsive, and proactive. These items can't be quantified, but what can be quantified are the change order percentage compared to other projects. Industry standards for change orders range from 10 to 15% of a construction project. The change orders for the Sheldon Interchange in Elk Grove were 9.9% of the construction project. For a Caltrans project of this order of magnitude, Caltrans views a project as a success if the change orders are in the neighborhood of 7% of the construction contract. The change orders for the Central Galt Interchange are only 3.7% of the construction contract. With that, it's staff's opinion that PB has done everything within their power to minimize costs and to have the best price that they possibly could to the city, and the contract amendment in staff's opinion is fair and equitable.
Under amendment number 1 to contract for services, item number 3, I was surprised that this was an amendment. I would have thought it would have been part of the contract. Scope of services. The scope of services is hereby modified as follows. Consultants shall do all work, attend all meetings, produce all reports, carry out all activities, and produce all deliverables. I guess what I'm trying to discover is, was there something in the beginning that we should have had agreements on before we got into the project? For example, in this case, the scope of service as an amendment. I'm kind of trying to understand that part.
Basically, PB's contract is a time and materials contract based upon a construction schedule and this construction schedule is 24 months. With the fact of it being delayed 11 months, they had additional costs associated with, both for staff time to deal with claims that they had not expected at the beginning of the project, because PB provided a lot of support for that. Every time there's a request from the contractor, they're required to respond to that. Apparently there was a lot of that at the beginning of the project. Additionally, there's additional costs associated with overhead. When projects are delayed, both your CM and your construction projects, they have an overhead associated with them because those people can't just go away 100% of the time. Somebody has to be there and manage it. And it's really the delays of the project that have increased the cost of the scope.
And then in this letter to Gwen from PB, it states, item number 1, in PB's original cost estimate, which was the basis for the original contract amount, non-working days due to weather were not included at the request of the city. I was wondering what the thinking was that the city did not want them to include that.
I cannot tell you what the thinking was as I wasn't here at the time. I am assuming, my assumption is the fact that they were trying to negotiate the best possible contract that they could in hopes that there wouldn't be significant weather delays, and if there were weather delays, that they could be made up.
Would you say that's normal to not include?
If you're going over a winter season, there is anticipation of rain, and there's going to be non-working days due to rain, so typically those things are included. Granted, when that happens, you don't necessarily have full-time staff. A lot of times what the CM companies will try and do over the winter months is you'll have people that will take vacation at certain times when it's a little bit slower, et cetera, and that's one of the things that actually PB, tried to do for us, is have people take vacations that weren't necessarily planned to reduce workload on the people that had to be on the project.
So it seems like PB started on the date that they were contracted to start on, which was 3 months earlier to Tykert starting. Is that?
Actually, PB was hired earlier. They were hired to do a constructability review, but their schedule, they were supposed to start construction in August, and with the start of construction, they had leased office space because of the fact that they didn't have a local office that they could work out of. So there was office space that they had to pay for. There was also issues that they helped the city with in regards to the bid protest, et cetera, at the very beginning that were not necessarily scoped as part of the project because they were unforeseen.
So basically, I guess we're saying that PB, because of delay caused by Tykert, is that correct? Well, the initial delay that occurred was because of the bid protest. And that was by who was, it wasn't Tykert that was, it could have been, do you remember, was it Silva? It was one of the other contractors. Okay. It was another contractor.
RGW, I believe, was the second low bidder, and they protested the bid process.
Okay. But that didn't affect our ability to change the start date for PB as well as Tykert?
PB was already under contract by then.
Okay. And was OmniMeans, who did the design, were they in any way negligent in part of their design, or do you feel like they were pretty complete?
The fact that we only have 3.7% of CCOs is really an testament to both OmniMeans and PB. OmniMeans for the design and PB for them aggressively working with Tykert to minimize any change orders and to be financially conscious is, I want to say, they both did a very good job.
Okay. Well, then based on your explanation and the fact that it does seem like it wasn't their responsibility because of the overrun or the delay, I would move the recommendation.
Second. Is there any further discussion, anyone? Call for the vote, please. Vice President Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. And then Liz, would you please read number 4, and then Kurt,
Yeah.
take it away.
Okay, number 4, amendment number 5 to agreement with landscape maintenance services with Professional Landscape Solutions.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick items. This is a report to amend the contract and extend it for very good reason. It looks to looking at bid practices that may end up costing the city less money. But my question is, we've hired a consultant to look and assist the city in that at this time. Who have we hired for that?
I'm trying to remember the name. The individual that's working with us is Wayne Tonda, who's a former public works director for the city of San Jose. And name of the consulting firm is,
I'm drawing a blank too here. Let me, I've got it in my contacts.
And I'm just curious, how long have they been on board?
I think since the beginning of January,
Okay.
mid-January, something like that. Municipal Resource
MRG,
Advisors.
Municipal Resource Group, I believe.
Municipal Resource Group.
And then lastly, on the recommendation, it talks about appropriations from funds 32 and 33. And it's not just for this report, but I guess for future reports for the benefit of the audience and others. Can we identify, it says Fund 32. What fund is that?
Right.
06 is Parks and Rec, General Fund's 01.
And the-
I just think for clarification for the reader, then they know which fund it's coming out of. And I suspect that this is out of the Lighting Landscape Districts.
Yes.
If I may, and I apologize for that. I caught that as I was preparing for tonight, and in my notes, I wrote out what the districts were. And Fund 32 is the Northeast Landscape and Lighting District, and Fund 33 is the West Side Lighting and Landscape District.
That's all I had for me, unless there's any other questions. Move to approve then.
Second.
Did you move? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
You moved. Sorry, second, please. Any more discussion? Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Mayor Pouch.
Aye. Liz, did you read 5?
Number 5, award of wastewater treatment plant agriculture lease.
Yeah, the only thing I want to point out here is I think, I don't know if staff did a great job or we had an undervalued lease, but it's significantly increased what the revenues to the 07 fund is going to be annually with this lease, and I hope the tenant is successful and re-ups, because that's a considerable increase from $1,500 a year to, what was it, $35,000 per year for the same contract. So I think that's good for everybody.
And can I just add something to that?
Sure.
I did get I did get a phone call from Gary Silva, and he was very pleased with the way staff worked with him, and he's very pleased with the outcome also.
Good. Good. If there's nothing else, I'd move to approve.
Second.
Any more discussion? Call for the vote, please, Liz.
Vice Mayor Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. Okay, Liz, that leaves us with 1, 2, and 6. Could you please read them for us?
Number 1, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 5th, 2013. Number 2, approval of the City of Galt warrants. And number 6, approval of the Treasurer's report for the period ending January 2013.
Move to accept remaining.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. And now we're to the approval of the 2010 Urban Water Management Plan update, and that's to you, Mr. Winkler.
Thank you. This item is a presentation as well as a public hearing, and it's regarding the proposed 2010 update to the city's urban water management plan. And yes, the plan is 2 years overdue. Just to put the skunk on the table here. This item tonight is essentially a housekeeping item, and it's to get the city back on track with its required 5-year update interval, and we will be bringing back the subsequent 5-year update in just 3 short years for 2015. On that note, this is the next in the series of items that we'll be bringing to your council for both information and approval and guidance regarding the city's water and wastewater system over the next few months. I've asked Mr. John Griffin, contract senior engineer with our department, to present an overview of the plan which he worked on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, as Steve mentioned before you tonight, is the adoption of the 2010 Urban Water Management Plan. Excuse me. As you can see, the document was prepared for the city by Carollo Engineers, and representing Carollo is Nicola Fontaine. He's right behind me tonight, so if there's any questions that either Steve or I are unable to answer, Nick will be able to answer those questions. I'll go ahead and read the recommendation verbatim. The recommendation is in three parts. After our presentation, we recommend that the council conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the urban water management plan. After the public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the urban water management plan and authorizing its finalization, reflecting any comments received, and then submitting a revised document to the Department of Water Resources. As a general background, the urban water management plan is a requirement of any water purveyor that supplies either 3,000 acre-feet of water or has 3,000 connections. And the reason for both of those qualifications is to differentiate between a water purveyor who provides a service or a water wholesaler who sells the water to purveyors. And we'll get into a little later in the discussion on why those two differentiations are both important. The Urban Water Management Plan is required by the Urban Water Management Planning Act. And the most recent version also discusses the requirements that were part of the Water Conservation Bill from 2009. That was part of the act from Assemblyman Steinberg and at the time Governor Schwarzenegger. And it required a 20% reduction in per capita water use by 2020. So that's really a big picture background on the plan. And again, it is required, as Steve mentioned, every 5 years. And due to staff turnover and resource limitations, that is now getting completed. Fortunately, there are no consequences at this time due to our late submission. But if we were to continue to not act on this, if the city ever wanted to go after any future SRF grant or loan applications, a completion of the Urban Water Management Plan would be a condition of that funding agreement. And we anticipate needing to go after a couple SRF applications in the near future on the wastewater plant. And then as Steve mentioned too, our next update will be in a couple years in 2015. The overarching purpose or objectives of the Urban Water Management Plan is kind of generally four main objectives. And the first and fourth bullets generally go together, and it's coordination with the city's or the county's general plan. For us, that's obviously the city's general plan. And in looking at the general plan, the overall objective is to ensure that the city, the water purveyor, either it be the city or a wholesaler that sells to cities or to other water districts, has the ability to meet the existing demands and also the ability or the reliability of existing supplies and the ability to meet projected growth over the next 20 years. And if the purveyor is unable to meet that growth, that's where kind of the rubber meets the road for the cities it serves. Fortunately, we don't anticipate having that problem, but that gets discussed in the Urban Water Management Plan. Other general objectives in the Urban Water Management Plan is to discuss kind of a contingency plan for water, drought, and emergency conditions. That itself is articulated in our municipal code. There's an ordinance adopted, I want to say almost 15 years ago, that articulates different steps that are based on water, drought, or water or emergency conditions that can be implemented to conserve water on an emergency basis. And also, secondly or thirdly, overall, it encourages water conservation. In general, there's in our Urban Water Management Plan, there's 6 sections of the report. The first one is kind of an introduction called the plan preparation, general information on the Urban Water Management Plan. The second section is a general system description, and it describes our water system in general, what our water supplies are. It describes our population, both historical and projected for the next 20 years. Again, very high-level description of our water system. The third item in our Urban Water Management Plan is a system demands. And that is the one that has changed the most compared to the last urban water management plan, and we will also touch on that. What this chapter discusses is how our baseline water, per capita water use was calculated, as well as interim and final targets. And it also articulates or estimates in 5-year increments what we believe our water use will be for the city by different water use sectors, be landscaping, commercial, industrial, residential. The fourth section is just generally discusses, again, our supply sources and reliability, how reliable they are, what sources we think we'll need now and in the future, and also requires looking at other potential sources such as water transfers from another district, the opportunities for using desalination or recycled water. And then the fifth section talks about our shortage contingency planning, and again, that's where it goes into significant detail on our ordinances and our municipal code sections regarding conservation planning and water shortage planning. Then lastly is the conservation measures analysis, and it evaluates your effectiveness of water conservation in the city with 14 general criteria or application measures. As I mentioned just before, Section 3 is where this plan changed compared to the prior version. And what is required now is the city, all providers are required to estimate a baseline usage, estimate an interim target for 2015, and a 2020 final target. The baseline usage is determined via an average of a 10-year range, and the city has some leeway in how it determines what that 10-year range is. The last year has to end somewhere between 2004 and 2010. So based on our data, the most or the best number for us was the range from 1999 to 2008, and that average per person in town is 215 gallons per day. As we get to the targets in the plan, the objective, again, by 2020 is that the city will have reduced its water use by 20% over its baseline. And there are 4 ways to determine what the 2020 target is. Those are articulated here, and then the 2015 is simply calculated as an average of your baseline in your 2020 target. Based on the 4 methods, we chose method 1, which is the most lenient of the targets. And that's a reduction of 20%, going from 215 gallons per person per day to 172 gallons per person per day. And it seems like a lot, and it is, and we'll get to how we can reach that goal later. And the document does discuss that. Fortunately, in 2015, we have one more chance to look at our target to see if it can be amended in any way based on new information. And currently, if we don't meet our target, there's no consequences. Now, of course, with regulations, that could always change. But currently, there's no consequences if we miss our target. Just for an overall summary, the graph you see here, the blue line is our annual average in per capita use per day over the last 12 years. The green line is our 2015 interim target, and the red line is our 2020 final target. As you can see, last year in 2011, we were below our interim target, and this past year, water usage has increased somewhat, and we will discuss that a little bit later as well. But before we get there, just as a quick summary of our existing and future supplies. The city currently relies solely on groundwater. We have 8 active wells ranging in flows from about 700 gallons a minute to 1,800 gallons a minute, and when they're all running, this system can produce as much as 10,000 gallons a minute. Very rare we have all 8 wells running, but on your peak day, when we have a lot of usage, it is, those wells all are used. In the 8 wells, they feed into a total of 5 water treatment plants, and that's how our water is treated to meet the regulations of the state. And there's a picture of one of our water treatment plants. And for our future supplies, to meet what we have determined to be the general plan build out, continuing to use 100% groundwater, we estimate an additional 13 wells are needed, and that's an additional flow of almost 19,000 gallons a minute. And this information comes from our water supply master plan that was prepared as a follow-on to the general plan adopted a couple years ago. And in summary, those 13 wells will necessitate 3 new water plants and 3 expanded existing water plants. And all of those costs will be paid for by future development. Again, in summary, the baseline is for our usage is 215 gallons per day with our 2015 and 2020 targets, and a summary of the last 4 years. The 2012 target is or usage is the most interesting. As you can see, usage has gone up by almost 20 gallons per person per day, and we're unsure if it's an anomaly or if the prior years were anomalies due to either a mild summer or wetter springs, or just economy with businesses using less water, and obviously if mild summers, parks are using less water, or the foreclosures and there being fewer homes. But regardless of that, the city will need to continue to conserve to meet our 2020 goal, and the most likely the best way we can meet our goal, which we currently are working on, is to implement our metering program and to install meters on all of our connections. Currently, a majority of our commercial users are metered, but between 5 and 10% of our residential users are metered. And by metering all of our residential users, it's estimated we could save anywhere between 5 and 20%. So potentially that alone could help us meet our 2020 final target. And finally, how did we get to this point as far as getting to the public review period? The public review period, we established it to be a little longer than required. Started on the 14th of February, and it closes tonight. And the document was posted on the city website, and then 3 paper copies were available for public review here at the City Hall and at the clerk's office. Other copies available at the library, and then also at the Public Works office. As required by the state, 2 notices were placed in the local paper on the 20th and 27th of February. And then tonight, with the public hearing, if there's any comments, we will receive those and incorporate those into a final document, which we are anticipating submitting to the Department of Water Resources as required on or around April 15th. With that, again, I'll go through the recommendation. We first recommend conducting a public hearing to receive any final comments on the Urban Water Management Plan, and then adopting a resolution approving the Urban Water Management Plan and authorizing staff to finalize it, reflecting any comments received, and submitting a final version to the Department of Water Resources. At this point, staff has not received any comments from the public, but we may receive comments tonight during the public hearing.
Okay, if it's okay with council, I'll open for public hearing, and then I'm going to open it for the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Council. Rick Walters. I'd like to have it on record that the council and staff tell us when they're going to put the water meters in, because I've been waiting 20 years. So, can you give me some kind of an idea? I mean, the last time we had a conversation about this was 4 months ago, and Jason said he's out gathering information. The information's already in. It's been in for 8, 10 years. So what are we waiting for? And how can you go forward with the management plan without the city having full metered, being fully metered? How can you do that? So I would like an answer tonight. What do we have to do? Sue you to get the water meters in? I mean, is that what it's come down to? And if I sound a little upset, I am a little upset with this because I've been up here before this council and previous councils for the last, I can't tell you how long, asking where are the water meters. You put the water meter in, it's ready to go. What are we waiting for?
Provide an update on the water meter project.
We were here several months ago to get confirmation and concurrence with some elements to include in our RFP as to things that would lead to future implementation with the water meter project. We have received 4 highly professional proposals. We recently did a paper screening and invited 2 of those proposers to come and make a formal presentation to our rating team, and the rating team is informally suggested or selected preferred proposer. We are currently negotiating terms to bring back to your council to award that contract, and at that time we'll also be presenting recommendations as to timing and an implementation plan for that, as long with a financing plan for how that would be paid for.
Do you have any idea, general sense of time?
Yeah.
It's always hard to predict how long it will take to negotiate a contract. If we're unsuccessful with the preferred proposal, we would then revert back and start negotiations with the second most qualified proposer if we're unable to reach reasonable terms. So that process could drag out, but candidly, I think we have actually on our 60-day outlook proposal to be bringing this back to you, I believe, in April.
Right. Okay, thank you. I think for benefit of Mr. Walters and others, you know, the document we looked at tonight was really a plan that looked at existing facilities, what the usage has been, and what we should be looking at in the future, not necessarily incorporating a mechanism such as water connections as a method to reduce the amount of water used. So I think that there is a distinction made between what was presented tonight, which is a mandatory requirement by the state to prepare this plan every 5 years. So they were actually 2 different things. So I hope that clarifies that for you a little bit. Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants public comment? So I'm going to close that and then ask council members if there's anything they'd like to say. And Councilmember Cruz.
Of course. Just out of curiosity, you say we have 8 active wells. How many of them are deep wells?
Councilmember, we currently have 1 deep well online, and that is the Golden Heights well. We are in the design process for a second deep well, which would be the Cost well site. And with that would also be, once that well water is online, that would give us a baseline to finish the design of a water treatment plant that will need to be upgraded at that same site.
And the ultimate goal is to do what with our shallow wells? Because that's our biggest problem with the treatment of arsenic, correct?
That's correct. If we successfully bring in, I just want to turn to staff, make sure I got that right. There's not a third one that I'm unaware of out there. When I came here, I got a briefing and said, well, we were successful. We're still working on finalizing, literally as we speak, the control system for the new water treatment plant that goes with the Golden Heights well. So we're not fully automatic there yet. We're still kind of running in manual mode, but we'll be bringing back some details on that whole situation to you in the near future. But hopefully that'll get online prior to summer peak in the next month or so, and then we'll continue. We're waiting on state revolving fund, SRF funding to proceed with the Golden Heights well, and then subsequently with the water treatment plant that will go with that. So it's hard to say when that'll be online. We need to sort of have the manana in hand before we can proceed to award a contract.
Okay. As far as wastewater, on your plan, I didn't see any notice as far as future say surrounding areas. What I'm leading to is the rancheria, the potential rancheria coming in, them tying into our wastewater. Has that been allowed for at all, or are you waiting to do that in 2020?
If I may, and feel free to jump in, John, we're taking a snapshot in time as of 2010, and yes, we're late with the report, but we're looking at an existing situation and then projecting baseline usage as well as interim targets. We'll be coming back every 5 years and updating the plan to address new demands and actual growth and new facilities that may have come online or are planned. So at this point in 2010, there was no rancheria contemplated. I'm certain that by 2015, if this gets some legs, that it will start to show up in our planning documents looking forward.
Thank you.
Councilmember Payne or Singleton?
I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that we were going to have to add more wells in the future. It's our projection. Do you anticipate that we will continue to go deeper and deeper in order to get what we need with these wells? I guess my concern is, you know, water is so precious to us, and because it's groundwater, we're affected by other things around us, such as agriculture. So I'm just wondering, do you see any concern that we should be looking at as far as when we start drilling the wells? Is the water going to be there?
Feel free.
Without having a crystal ball, we don't anticipate there being any issues. Again, what we anticipate with all of our wells, starting with the Golden Heights well and now with Cost, is that we'll be going deeper. And when I say deeper, the wells, just for the public, the wells are about 1,500 feet deep, and we don't anticipate
how much?
1,500 feet. So we don't anticipate there being any water quality issues or any other conditions or concerns that would affect either the availability of water or the quality of water.
Does the agriculture use of water, is that going to affect our need to go deeper?
Typically, agricultural wells are much shallower, 200, 300, 400 feet. And so there is a very significant clay layer that separates the two, so it protects the deeper water supply.
Yeah, we're among the few wells in our end of the aquifer with the development of the Coastal. I think there's only 3 wells that are that deep into that lower isolated aquifer. It's expensive to go that deep, and it costs a lot of money and energy to extract the water from that deep, but the cost of that pales in comparison to treating the arsenic, so it's a better deal. Because we're among the few that are currently there, and it's unlikely that ag wells would want to go that deep just from a cost perspective, since the arsenic is not a problem for ag wells as a general rule. We're probably going to enjoy some rare company, and hopefully nobody else will be tapping straws into that aquifer. In answer to the question of is ag a factor, it's a huge factor. You might recall in the City Manager's Weekly Update, we had an article talking about how we're in a cooperative with South Sacramento County Groundwater Management Planning Group. They're looking at the region and ag and Elk Grove and Galt and the other uses that are tapping into that, and we're working cooperatively together with the county to try to develop a long-term strategy. The good news is that our particular South County groundwater aquifer subbasin is not overdrafted and shows a good propensity to rebound with a good wet year rather rapidly, unlike some others where it may take decades to recover from a drought. We noticed that literally within 2 years of the end of the previous sort of 5-6 year drought cycle, that we were back to normal levels, which is considered extremely rapid. That bodes well for our sustainability in the near term. Galt is a growing city, and the projection is we'll double population by 2030, but even so, we're a relatively small town in terms of City of Sacramento and other large municipalities. So we're a small straw in the aquifer, and ag is probably drawing at pretty much a peak. What their ag is moving to drip irrigation and moving to other methods, and we're not seeing a lot of new acreage going into new irrigation. As a result, we think that probably the agricultural demand is stabilizing and may drop even as cities continue to grow.
If I could just ask one more question. I thought at one time the city had a plan to, maybe in the landscaping, to try to conserve water usage. Does the city have such a plan to conserve water, either in our parks or model homes with the landscaping that doesn't use as much water? Do we have any plan for something like that, or are we thinking of having a plan to conserve water in that respect?
The state actually did adopt a model ordinance, and cities are required to adopt an equivalent. We have not adopted the ordinance yet, but we are required to comply with it. So when landscape plans come in, they are reviewed by our contract landscape architect to meet those requirements. And part of it is having the water budget and maximum water levels that can be used in the landscaping.
Does the city still encourage, say, in the development of model homes, a zero-scape landscape model so that you have a low water user?
Yeah, I look forward to having another model home to
I
impose that
understand.
requirement on, but
I
yes,
know,
we do.
I know we used to, yes. Yeah.
We do have a requirement that, yes, they do a demonstration garden with a zero-scape landscaping.
And at this time, we're not patrolling neighborhoods to see if people are wasting water. Is that correct?
We're working on a complaint basis, so if neighbor drops a dime on you, we'll go take a look. You know, if our staff observe it, they'll do a stop and knock or a door hanger if we observe that, you know, water's just running. Occasionally there'll be a broken pipe or something, and, you know, either the neighbors are concerned or we'll spot it floating out into the gutter. It dawns on me that Councilmember Cruz asked a question that I probably sounded like I was dancing around. You asked what would happen to the shallower wells, and I don't think I ever answered that. Is the beauty of the deeper wells is that they're also high production wells, and they allow us to put in standby or emergency standby mode the shallower wells and use the cheaper water and only rely on the expensive water when a well's out of service, expensive meaning the treated water, or if fire demand or peak summer demand is, we have to operate them to keep them fresh and the tanks chlorinated and whatnot for the treatment process, you know, but that's sort of like a generator. You run it once a month whether it needs it or not, just to keep everything ready to go. And so we do that. We exercise the treatment plants when they're offline, but the goal would be to use the most economical water for the city and then save the other wells for emergencies or fire flows, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Mr. Singleton, Councilmember Singleton, I'm sorry, you.
I'm through. Thank you.
We share the aquifer with other cities, and I was looking. We're going to make predictions as to our how much we're going to use. That has a lot of. I'm curious because it has a lot to do with weather. How much growing happens, you know, construction in homes and commercial sites, and I don't quite understand how we can predict how much construction we're going to have by 2015 or even 2020. Can you explain a little bit? Yeah, I'm looking at you. It's your turn.
There's a couple ways, you know, at the 20-year build-out, we look at the general plan, and based on that population projection and also commercial industrial users, that is our kind of our 2030, 20-year build-out. In between, you know, there's information such as the State Department of Finance does some population projections that can be used, or there's some general assumptions as far as a percent population growth. And from what I'm not positive on, I'm fairly certain that the report talks about using the Department of Finance numbers for 5-year increments and then the general plan build out at the 2030.
Okay, so we have to as far as other cities building, we have to just kind of guesstimate on their outgrow also as far as construction. Because anytime we have construction, it affects the aquifer, correct?
This document only looks at our growth, so we don't.
So we're only looking at our growth, but we share the aquifer with other cities, is what I'm saying.
If I may, the reason the state requires all cities and all counties to do this report is so they can look at the regional roll-ups and overall demand.
Okay.
The reason we partner with the South County Groundwater Management Group is so that we're sharing data. We don't report on Elk Grove's growth or on, rural Sacramento County's growth, but they do, and then we all look at the data, and all of these go on public websites. So
that all goes into consideration.
Right, and if, just as a point of information, I was surprised to learn after getting here and looking at some of the hydrological reports, is that we actually share a benefit that many communities don't, and that is that we actually are the only city that's on our sub-basin within the overall South County region. We're actually isolated from the main aquifer that Elk Grove is using, so they're not really drawing or influencing unless they got into a severe overdraft. Our sub-basin doesn't really feed their sub-basin. Similarly, Lodi to the south of us is separated by the McCullough River, and we recharge in opposite directions. So we're kind of isolated from them. So really our big competitor is ag.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Piggyback on that too. Part of the Urban Water Management Planning Act requires that the Department of Water Resources provides a general summary to the state legislature on overall water usage and projections as well. So piggyback on what Steve said is the Department of Water Resources will take all the various entities that prepare these reports and give a summary on water demand and where the water sources and how it's being used.
Okay, thank you guys. Good report. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, the bad news or the good news is by the time it gets to me, there's probably not too much more to say. That's what I get for being so polite, I guess. But I will say that, it's really a shame when we talk about conservation that we can't get Joe Average Citizen to kick in a little bit, because 215 gallons a day seems like a heck of a lot of water. So if I was pushing my bets anywhere, I would try to let it be more known around town. Shower with a friend or something. I'm not sure. That's what we used to say in Truckee. I had to put that in.
Just to give that number some perspective, and you figure there's typically approximately an average of 3 residents per household. So that's 650 gallons a day per household. 3/4 of that is irrigating lawns, and it's not inside use, it's outside use.
Oh, then maybe we should teach them how to do their sprinklers. Maybe there'd be class, like every other day we used to do that.
Well,
it's under the water alert number 2, I think, and it's outlined in the plan.
Yeah.
And part of the reason we suggest that we believe, because studies have shown that many other communities have shown a dramatic drop when you put people on a demand-based or a metered water usage, they're getting a monthly or a bi-monthly report saying, I spent how much, in July when the heat wave gets here, and so they start saying, I need to change those sprinklers to drips, and so it's sort of a self-policing
I guess
thing.
we're back to when are the water meters coming in.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
So, Liz, could you please read the recommended action and?
I did have
I'm sorry.
I did have a comment. I did talk with Steve earlier in reviewing the report, and the one thing that I was, it wasn't included, and I'm sorry it wasn't, we just had insufficient data, was looking at talking about the average uses on a single-family home. They don't have a breakdown between those homes that are metered in town today versus unmetered, and I thought that information will be very interesting to look at when we talk about the report that regarding water meters in April, because I think it brings a lot to think about, because if you look at a big discrepancy in usage, your cost factor for overall operations doesn't change, but if your per capita or per cubic foot usage goes down, then you end up with concerns of having to raise rates. And I think that that's one thing that we have to be very conscious about going into this. So,
that's a true fact, and that's one of the reasons that we want to probably be recommending, there's a sneak preview of what you'll get here in a couple of months, we'll probably be recommending that we proceed with the meter installation, but we hold off on any rate implications till we collect data citywide and come up with the right-sized plan that both minimizes cost but covers our actual operating costs. But if there is going to be a reduction in usage, allow us to right-size that.
And that will be for another day, I guess.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, could you read the recommended action, please?
Receive a presentation and conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding the proposed 2010 Urban Water Management Plan, and adopt a resolution approving the 2010 Urban Water Management Plan and authorizing its finalization and submittal to the State Department of Water Resources.
Did I cut you off, Kurt?
No, so
Oh,
moved.
okay.
You closed the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, I did.
So moved. I didn't hear you.
Is everybody keeping an eye out on me?
Yes.
Okay.
Move.
He's not the only, I didn't hear that either, that's why we were concerned.
Do I have a,
Second.
Second.
call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
All right.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. So now we're at the strategic plan, and that's to me, but I'm going to actually hand it over to a couple of people as we go through it. We'll start off with the enhanced economic development. Somebody pushing the button there somewhere?
Chief, or
Somebody push
somebody
the
can
button.
slide on to the
Please.
next. There we go.
Okay, and that's
go back.
you, the first one?
There we go.
Okay, and that's number 5. Would you read it and give us an update, please?
Absolutely. Is to update the Economic Development Roadmap and have it certified by the Federal Economic Development Administration as a CEDS, which is Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, and we are making progress on that. We have a consultant on board, Shaven Concepts, who helped us develop our strategy back in 2008. We are in the process of forming our CEDS committee, which is a requirement from the federal government. We have our first meeting scheduled for April 11th. Council member Cruz and Payne are part of that committee, and so we'll look forward to having that first workshop and then follow up with a subsequent workshop probably in May, and we hope to be back to the council for adoption in June.
Okay. Secondly, we're on improved financial stability and maintenance of reserves, and who's going to take that one? You
Everybody
again?
always wants to know about Walmart. I think I'll
Okay,
let Sandy give the council a little bit of an update.
that's we're asked that every day.
Yeah, you do that.
First, I want to apologize. I have an error on the screen. The goal here was to contingent upon timely receipt of plans from Walmart to issue the city permits for the Walmart project. In my comment section, I noted when Walmart originally was going to submit their building applications, they were going to divide it into two, the civil sets and the structural architectural. They ended up deciding not to do that and to submit it as one set, and my mind was stuck on the prior plan. So disregard when I indicate that it excludes architectural plans. But Walmart first submitted their initial building permit plans December 26th. City conducted plan check and review comments in mid-January, gave them all the comments. They submitted revised site plans and architectural plans on March the 6th. And today we gave them their second set of plan check comments from the city. We are waiting for they've been doing all this electronically. We've initiated electronic plan check, which they love. But we've asked them to give us a print set so that we can cross-check the civil sets with the architectural sets and give them their final comments. Walmart is saying that they plan on pulling their permit and breaking ground this fall, and again, still opening in spring of 2014.
Okay, thank you very much. And then on provide services and facilities that are responsive to community needs, we've got something up there, but it's coming up later, so shall we just, do you want to read it? And
Yeah, one of the goals, and it is later on the agenda, is to present to the City Council for direction possible restoration of the J.C. Hall for use as a joint-use community center with the gathering place. And so we'll kind of hold the drum roll until the presentation by Public Works in a few minutes. We can provide the council with an update.
Okay, and then our last one is improve community involvement and two-way communication, and that's to you, Councilmember Payne.
Thank you. I am excited and happy to report that we've made a lot of progress in looking at the feasibility of this. We have a committee of about 10 people, and Mayor has been working with us on this. And the committee is made up of representatives from the elementary school, the high school, the churches, the nonprofits, and so we have a pretty good feel for what we think the community needs. We actually have collected data, in other words, contact information for all of these different, whether it's school clubs, nonprofits, the churches, of over 100 names and contact information. So the next plan is to take that information and make it work for our community. The committee has come up with the name Galt Community Alliance, and our structure is a committee of volunteers representing government, education, civic, religious, business, other organizations, and citizens of Galt. Our purpose: promotion of Galt's past, present, and future by increasing community awareness, support, and participation in organizational events and activities taking place in Galt. Objectives: collaborate with and between organizations in the planning, scheduling, and support of community events and activities to help alleviate schedule conflicts. Develop and publish consolidated calendar, website, social media outlets listing upon community events, activities, dates, times, locations, etc., with the ability for ongoing revision. And as far as the feasibility, we would like to ask the council to authorize our city attorney to look into forming a 501c, a nonprofit, because this type of information would be including the churches, which we always try to keep separate state from church, as we have with our signs and everything. So we think this is going to be very beneficial to the community as far as getting communication out, which is something that is always a challenge if you're having an event to reach all the people in the Galt area, as well as hopefully trying to help unify the community more, east side, west side, all of that. We think the cost of this is going to be minimum because our main way of accomplishing this is through the social media. We have a person lined up that's willing to do that and stay on top of it, which in itself was an accomplishment. So, and I don't know that we can do this at this point, but this is our plan to ask the City Council to authorize our city attorney to help us form a 501c organization. Yeah. Okay. And I see the city attorney kind of looking at me. Do you have something to add to that?
Well, I think that before we just moved ahead with the formation of a nonprofit, and my recommendation would be that this item come back as a separate discussion action item for the council on a future agenda, where we can lay out what the different options are, and then possibly the recommendation would be to move ahead with a nonprofit. But that is only one option as it relates to how to proceed, and at that point we could be appropriate to get council recommendation and direction.
And I think that's kind of what my report is saying. We're to the point now where we think we can ask the council to recognize it is a feasibility study that's worthy of putting some city time and energy into it. So, unless there's any questions, David is here also, who's been working on this. David, did you want to say something? Okay, thank you. I need moral support.
He's a good moral supporter.
Yes, me.
Yeah.
I know you've been working hard too. Good job.
So, was there any questions or anything? But that's my report.
Very good report. You guys are moving right along. So that, done with that, so we've received the report. And we're on to the city attorney's office. You want to read it, Liz?
An ordinance amending Chapter 2.70 of the Galt Municipal Code regarding membership of the Planning Commission.
Mayor and council members, the ordinance proposed this evening for adoption would increase the size of the Planning Commission from 5 to 7 members. 2 additional members will be appointed by the City Council. This ordinance was introduced at the meeting of March 5th, so it is ready for adoption this evening if the council desires. If it is adopted, it will be effective in 30 days. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we do have one public speaker. Do I open it up?
No.
Okay.
You can just call him up, Dan, some of that.
Dan Jimenez, and I live in the city. Before I go on to this subject, it struck me that when they were giving the presentation on the water conservation, that last year when this council, 4 of you voted in for that recycling center over there, none of you had a question about the water usage that facility was going to use for washing down the facilities, for washing down their docks, for washing down their trucks, and it's going to be eventually a 24-hour operation, and it's going to be hundreds of gallons of water that they're going to use, and there wasn't one question that you asked about that. You know, you really don't want to be looking at the future in your rear view mirror. Anyways, for further companies that want to come in that have a big requirement on water, you may want to ask those questions.
Well, it was in the report that was given to us, and we did ask those questions.
Well, that report isn't made public, you know, when you talk about it here at council meetings and stuff, so.
It was
again,
given at the council meeting.
Pardon me?
It was given at the council meeting, the report on Cal Waste.
I was here, I don't remember that. And I tried to remember just about everything.
Well, didn't remember.
Anyway, moving on, about the Planning Commission. I wasn't here when that meeting took place at the last council meeting, but I saw it on TV. And I really don't have a problem with adding 2 more members to that committee. What I did notice, though, was it talked about that there wasn't a quorum every time, and that was the reason that they wanted to add in additional council members. And then there was a little discussion on that, and it was voted on by 3 of you, I believe, to have the additional 2 members. But nothing was said about the problem people that weren't showing up so there wouldn't be a quorum that got you there in the first place. I mean, those people that were there, those 5, are strategically put in by you folks, and that was an address of what are you going to do with them? All you did was throw more manpower at it. And that's really not a solution. That's not, if you work in the real world as a manager and you tell your CEO, hey, I've got these 3 people over here, they're not performing their jobs, and once in a while they show up, can I go out and hire more people so we can get this job done? The next thing I know, I'd be working in the shipping department. You take Mr. Guthrie over here. If he has construction workers that don't show up, he's not going to go out and hire more people.
Time's up. Thank you very much for your comments.
Rick Walters, how are you, does it say, and I didn't get the staff report, does it say in there how this council is going to elect those 2 extra people? Is it going to be
They're appointed at large by the full council.
So that means that all 5 have to approve. There can't be any dissension, right?
No, it does not mean that. It means that it's appointed by a majority of the city council.
Well, then I object to that, because then if say one of you have already voted one in and you want another one in that feels the same way you do, that's kind of like 2 votes for whatever. So I think it should be all of you agree. All of you should agree. Should be no dissension. That's what I think it should be. That would be the fair thing to do. Thank you.
Is there anyone that wants to add anything? So I know we've been over and over and over.
No, I know we have.
And I'm amazed that some people don't hear what we've been over and over, but anyone else want to add anything?
Yes, I'm not in favor of this, and I've made that very clear. And since the last meeting, I did go back and look at, the city attorney had mentioned a number of cities that did have 7 commissioners, I think, in the surrounding area. But what I did is I looked at the comparator cities that the city of Galt uses for, I believe, salary surveys, job titles, compensation, and so forth. And in looking at those, there are some that have 7 members. But in looking at the list of those cities that have 7 members, most of those cities have a population of at least 50,000 or more. And if you let me read through here real quickly, Brentwood has 5 commissioners, they're at 52,000. Ceres has 5 commissioners, they are at 45,000 population. Lathrop has 5, they're at 18,000. Lodi has 7 commissioners, they're at 63,000. Manteca has 5 plus an alternate like we used to have, they're at 68,000. Oakdale has 5 commissioners, they're at a population of 21,000. Placerville has 5, they're at a population of 10,000. West Sac, they're at 7, they have a population just under 50,000. Woodland, I believe, is 7, and they have a population of about 56,000. And then in Galt, we had 5 and population of under 24,000. So I think, you know, to offset those cities that the city attorney brought up, I think if we're really going to look at, for consistency's sake, what the city uses as a comparator, I think the comparator cities clearly demonstrate that the 5 commissioners is what is used in other cities and other jurisdictions, not only our size, but as part of the comparison cities that we use for a number of different things. That's one point. The second point, which I think is maybe even more important, we have not, and there might be a variety of reasons as to why the commission is being increased, whether it's a lack of performance, which I don't believe there is, because I haven't seen any evidence or any reports that would indicate that the commissioners have not showed up and there's been meetings canceled due to a lack of a quorum. But lacking that information, that's one reason. Others simply because it provides a more public input. Well, to counter that, public input can come in many forms. It can come from the public at the podium, at the meeting. So I don't find that to be a really valid reason. But I think what's most important is we haven't even considered what the Planning Commission thinks. And I think before we take final action on this should go to the Planning Commission for their comment and their response. I know 2 of them just got back from the League of Californians conference. I don't know if it was discussed down there, but I think certainly they were aware of it before they went. It would be interesting to hear what they heard from their peers in other jurisdictions. And I think that's just more information for us to make, I think, a sound decision, because once this decision is made, it's going to be with us for a long time. So I think it's important that we get input from that body, because they are the most effective. I don't know whether they feel insulted, whether they are, whether they have any opinion as to whether the commission should be increased, but I think that their input and comments should at least be considered by the council. So I would make that in the form of a motion, table this until we get a report back from the Planning Commission on their end.
Well,
I don't know if I get a second.
Oh, I'll second this motion, but I thought the city attorney had some input. No, you're just moving forward.
Madam Mayor, could I make just one comment? I feel like I need to sort of respectfully defend the honor of my commissioners too tonight. The one time that we did have a quorum issue in the past 10 years that we looked at the records at, we basically had two conflicts of interest. Two of the commissioners had a conflict of interest with the applicant and had to recuse themselves. The third one's parent was in the hospital. So it was an unfortunate situation that we did have a lack of a quorum and had to cancel that meeting, but it wasn't anyone shirking responsibility and that kind of characterization. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And I just want to clarify that that's not the only reason that we all have up here for doing it. We've listened days and days and days, and that's not the one reason. We've all got different thoughts on it, so to keep bringing that up, I'm glad you mentioned it, but I don't think anybody up here is slamming the other committee or group.
To respond to the member of the public that made the comment.
Well,
I don't
we
think
do have
additional information helps or hurts us. I mean, you know, I think I think it's important that we hear from what our commissioners have to think and have to say.
well, I've personally talked to some of them, but well, we have a motion. Call for the vote.
Okay, Vice Mayor Singleton?
No.
We're in the middle of that.
No, we're out of order.
Councilmember Payne? Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Cancian? Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor Powers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's move on.
Like you said, it doesn't hurt to have more
It
information.
doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay, now we're at, where are we at?
Number 3?
I lost my page. Hold on. Yeah, please.
Okay, annual 2030 Galt General Plan and Housing Element Progress Report for 2012.
The housing element progress report and the general plan, okay? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I know that City Council is very familiar with the city's general plan, but before I dive into the mandatory 2012 annual report, wanted to give a brief overview that might be in order for members of the viewing audience. Besides, it's just incredibly interesting stuff. So why do we have a general plan is the first question. Why don't we just wander off on one of these winding paths and hope that we get up where we want to be? The first reason is it sets out the long-term vision for Galt's physical development. It outlines the policies and the programs to guide the daily decisions that are made. And the most compelling reason for having a general plan is that it's required by state law for every California city and county. For the Galt general plan, these particular goals and policies that are in our policy document were established over a long 6-year process that I'm sure most of you remember. Included 52 public meetings, and all that work is basically compiled into the policy document, and that contains sort of the hopes and dreams the community has for what it wants to look like and feel like when it grows up. Galt's general plan actually consists of 2 separately bound parts. The first is the existing conditions report that talks about sort of the baseline conditions of where we started. It serves as the environmental setting for the environmental impact report that was prepared to evaluate the general plan's land use development pattern in terms of traffic, noise, public services. The policy document, which is kind of the meat of the general plan, sets forth the city's plan for how we get from where we started to where we want to be. In this case, the year 2030 is our planning horizon, or when we reach build out of the plan, which is expected to be a population of about 51,300 people. Basically, the general plan is a statement of city's development policies. It must include diagrams and text that sets forth objectives, principles, and programs for development. At a minimum, state law requires that these 7 elements be included in your general plan. You must address each of the elements to the extent that the subject matter exists in your jurisdiction. So if you're a highly urbanized city, when you have minimal forests, for example, then you would focus very little on forestry and focus more on stormwater quality, air quality, and such matters. You are also allowed to include optional elements. They're allowed if you think that there are certain subjects that are very important to the physical development of your community. You can sort of put a spotlight on those issues by emphasizing them in your general plan. when Galt did its last comprehensive update of the general plan, we included these 4 optional elements. So now onto the actual agenda item before you tonight. Every year we're required to do an annual report that must be submitted to the Governor's Office of Planning Research and to the State Housing and Community Development Department. You received the entire written annual report with your agenda packets last week, so this is just a recap of the main points. California Government Code requires each jurisdiction file the report to show the status of each general plan element, our progress in meeting the various goals and policies, and our progress in meeting the city's fair share of the regional housing needs. The 2030 general plan was adopted April 7th of 2009. We have since approved 2 general plan amendments. The first one was just sort of a cleanup amendment to 2 small parcels in the downtown specific plan area that had sort of reversed land use designations. The second was when you revised the historic structures inventory and the existing conditions report back in, I believe, December. The current housing element that we are operating on is out of date, but the city, we have been tracking our progress in meeting the regional housing need allocation for the current cycle, which is 2006 to 2013. The next cycle is due in October, and that covers the 2013 to 2021 period. Regarding the housing element, I do need to make a correction to the annual report. It occurs in a few places, so I will make the cleanup amendments throughout, but basically it's 2 places. On page 20, down at the bottom of the page, if you go by the numbering down there, it's policy 27 in table 10. The policy basically states that the city is to revise the housing element per the government code required cycles. For the status update, I noted that we were significantly delayed in adopting the 2006 to 2013 element. A lot of that was caused by the fact that we were in the middle of the general plan update at the time, and you can't adopt your housing element because it's based on the land use pattern and everything in the general plan. So we had to wait until we finished the general plan to get going on the housing element. Unfortunately, when we finished the general plan in mid-2009, we were deep in the economic recession, and staff resources were very tight. To make matters worse, HCD was requiring that the city adopt a minimum density of 20 units an acre in our high-density zoning district. Staff argued with them for some time that the R3 zoning already allows 14 to 24 units, so a developer can certainly build 20 units an acre, but we felt that making 20 the minimum standard was just going to be too onerous, and that there's probably not a strong market for that level of density in Galt, whereas there might be a stronger market for something slightly less dense. After much discussion over the past several months back and forth with HCD staff, a couple of months ago, about a month and a half ago, they changed their position and have agreed to accept Galt's current housing density of 14 to 24 units. They also just issued us a letter stating that the draft 2006 to 2013 housing element that we submitted to them will meet state law requirements for adoption. Now, I have stated at a couple of different public meetings that I was of the opinion that it would not be the best use of staff resources to pursue adoption of that element, since it's only going to be valid for a few months until the next one is due. But after several recent conversations with HCD in the last day and a half, actually, it appears that there could be some additional burdens on the city if we do not go ahead and adopt that element. We're still working on precisely what the burdens are, but it sounds like they could require us to carry forth our RENA allocation from the 2006 or from the 2002 to 2007 element forward to this current element. Also, we would not get credit potentially for the Galt Place units because we had an unaccommodated need for 49 units in the last cycle, and unless we adopt this element that memorializes that unaccommodated need, they could take the position that they're not going to count those. Consequently, staff is going to recommend that we proceed with adoption of the current element. We need to do that before the end of June. We're planning a May Planning Commission meeting and an early June City Council hearing. We would like to propose a special joint Planning Commission City Council workshop maybe in April, to go over all of the information, so when it comes forth for the public hearing, there'll be a little bit less information that you'll need to wade through. So I think the clerk's going to talk about that a little bit later under her report, but we would like to propose an April 11th date, which is the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, but they won't have a meeting next month because of lack of business. In the meantime, staff recommends that Policy 27's status update be amended to reflect our intent to move forward now with the adoption of the 2008-2013 housing element in this year. There's a few other locations where that language appears in the document. We will also make those changes. At the bottom of page 14, before this is sent to OPR and HCD, we will also add some clarification about the 49-unit unaccommodated need that we have addressed through Galt Place, so that is clearly in the annual report. So to continue on with the housing element progress that we have made, the housing element requires that you assess the housing needs in the city and do an inventory of resources and constraints relevant to meeting those needs. Staff did the public outreach for the housing element back in 2006 when we started, and then sort of stopped to hold off until the general plan was done. But we will be initiating that process again for the 2013-2021 housing element cycle due in October. The city then has to show that it has adequate land available in the city that is zoned at appropriate densities to address our fair share of the regional housing needs allocation, which is pretty much means that land zoned high-density residential, which can make housing more affordable. This table shows Galt's current share of the regional allocation by income level for the current cycle, the 2006-2013 cycle. We were allocated 635 units, and then they also identify which income categories those need to be in. We need to provide 68 extremely low, 69 very low, 66 low, 93 moderate, and 339 above moderate. There is no penalty for not meeting the regional housing need targets. The city just has to basically show that you have land that's appropriately zoned. If someone came in and wanted to develop an affordable housing project, that they would be able to find appropriately zoned land to meet that requirement. This table, it's pretty hard to read, but it shows the housing production term over the cycle. The thing that's not on this table, because it's an HCD table, is the unaccommodated need issue. But we've actually made some really good progress. We've got, of the 68 extremely low units we were to provide, and those are very difficult. You'll find most jurisdictions don't come close to meeting their extremely low allocation. We provided 8 units in the Galt Place project. Very low, we had an allocation of 69 units. We provided 48 units. All of those came in the Galt Place project. In the low income category, allocation of 66, we provided 55 units. That was kind of a combination of Grizzly Hollow Unit 3, 2 Habitat for Humanity houses, and the Galt Place project. And then HCD doesn't care too much about your moderate and above moderate. They're mainly concerned with your lower income, so I won't bother going over that tonight. Historically, the city has always included in the annual report various redevelopment agency projects that furthered the goals and policies of the general plan. Even though redevelopment has been eliminated going forward and our bond money is held up in the courts, we did manage to complete several projects in 2012. The Central Galt Corridor project and Union Pacific Railroad parking lots project, preliminary design was completed. The CEQA analysis was conducted for a 500,000 square foot retail center as a concept on the Simmerhorn commercial property, just so that it is developer ready. 3 Old Town properties were acquired and blighted buildings were demolished near 4th and B Streets to kind of clean up that area. Other non-redevelopment agency city projects that were completed in 2012 also further the attainment of the Galt General Plan goals and policies. The building permit application for Walmart is in process. We completed the draft CEQA for the entertainment center project. We're kind of waiting for the bond money issue to be figured out before we proceed too much further with that. We completed Central Galt interchange construction, approved the Fairway Oaks vesting map, and streamlined the architectural process for new homes to make it easier for home builders. We developed a temporary fee reduction program to encourage construction of new homes, and either that or the economy or a combination of both is really having an impact right now in Galt. We're getting the phone's ringing off the hook with developers interested in taking advantage of that project right now. The city also launched the Galt-Sacramento Commuter Express Bus, assigned police officers to the regional gang task force and joint Elk Grove Galt SWAT team, and launched online registration for Parks and Rec programs. Hosted a Child Safety Day and bike rodeo, completed an at-grade pedestrian crossing at Dead Man Gulch across Carolian Boulevard, secured classrooms on the Fairsight campus for some special interest Parks and Rec programs, replaced a lot of the play surfaces at some of the parks, and installed a second community message sign to advertise city events. In your packet, you'll see that we've identified the status of each housing element implementation program in Table 10. That starts on page 16 if you look at the bottom numbers on your packets. Since we already spent a bit of time on the housing element tonight, I won't go into those unless you have additional questions. Unfortunately, we only issued one single house in 2012, but that is going to significantly change in 2013 and 14. The rest of the general plan implementation programs are shown in Appendix A, starting on page 26 in your packet at the bottom. Couple of quick highlights there. Program C-D is transit planning, where the city initiated the new Sacramento Commuter Express service on April 30th. It's been doing very well. Conservation Open Space Policy, Program H, talks about upgrading existing city facilities for energy efficiency. Last year, the city received an energy efficiency block grant to retrofit 184 high-pressure sodium streetlights with LED light fixtures. And since we had negotiated the solar power purchase agreement at the wastewater treatment plant, those facilities were up and running at the start of 2012. Public Works, I think, is working on an analysis right now to show the cost savings that's being realized at the wastewater treatment plant. And lastly, PFS, Public Facilities Element Program A, had us prepare infrastructure master plans for water, wastewater, storm drain, and pavement management. All of those master plans were completed in 2012. Lastly, the Planning Commission considered this annual report at its meeting on February 21st. They unanimously recommended that City Council accept the report as written. Staff does request that Council approve of the recommended text amendments that I described verbally in this presentation, addressing the unaccommodated need issue and modifying the document to change the city's intention on adopting the 2008 to 2013 housing element at an upcoming public hearing. As noted in the recommendation, City Council should review the report, provide an opportunity for public comment, consider the Planning Commission's recommendation, direct staff to make any changes you may wish to see, and then finally accept the report and direct us to send it on to OPR and HCD. Thank you.
Okay, are there any public comments on this? Okay, would you like to read the recommended action, please?
Okay, direct staff to make any needed modifications to the report, and by motion accept the report and direct staff to submit it to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and the Department of Housing and Community Development in accordance with Government Code 65400.
Move to approve.
And with the changes.
And with, as amended, yes, it would be accepted as amended by staff and in her staff report.
Move to approve.
Okay, questions? Barbara?
On page 28, under flood protection ordinance, the city should monitor and update the flood protection ordinance. Do we have any area within our city limits that requires the home be, 1 foot above the, are there any in our?
We have parcels that touch or are within the 100-year floodplain, very limited areas, mainly along Dry Creek and Dead Man's Gulch, a few isolated. There are no developed parcels where the structure itself is within, so very limited impact. There are some, if there was future development, depending on what they propose to build and where on the lot that would be, that might have to either elevate or raise floor or something to that effect.
I think in one of your reports one time you gave us a map of that, didn't you?
Public Works did. There are also general plan policies that prohibit development in the floodplain for the city.
Totally, even if they raise them up a foot above, okay.
Any more questions?
Very good report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? No. Okay, we do call for the, any more discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz? Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, now we're at the Finance Department. Liz, would you read it, please?
Yes, a single audit report fiscal year ended June 30, 2012, and memorandum on internal control and required communications for the year ended June 30, 2012.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and community members. This evening, staff is recommending that Council accept the reports as just mentioned by the City Clerk. And by way of background, the Department actually presented the financial statements back in December of 2012. The internal control memo and the single audit were not completed at that time, and they have since been completed, and we're presenting them this evening. The single audit report presents all of the activity of federal awards received by the city and comments on compliance requirements. The city in last fiscal year received over $6 million in federal grants, and the most significant was over $4 million, and that was from RSTP and Safety Lou monies, which were used for the Central Galt Interchange project. There were no findings for the current year, and there were no items that had to be reported from the prior fiscal year related to the single audit. On the memorandum of internal controls and required communications, there's 3 levels of reports: material weaknesses, which the city did not receive any comments or any material weaknesses noted within the report. There were no significant deficiencies that were presented by the auditors either. However, there were 3 comments that they believe could strengthen internal controls within processes of the city. The first one dealt with terminated employees. They found that after they reviewed some final checks of employees, that they were not inactivated in the system, and they are recommending that to strengthen internal controls that those employees should be inactivated. What we found was that primarily we had seasonal temporary employees that had left city employment, and they were not inactivated because we knew or believed that they would be returning in the next season. So the point was that to strengthen internal controls, that we should be inactivating them, go through the process, and then reactivating them upon the next hire during the next season. So staff members are currently looking at how we can strengthen internal control without it creating an additional paperwork load, but we obviously want to strengthen internal controls. So we'll be working with departments and HR and the payroll division and see what kind of processes we can come up with to address this item. The second item was the purchasing policy, and the purchasing policy was rewritten in February of last fiscal year, February 2012, and that was the first time that it had actually been rewritten since 1997. There were several changes that were incorporated throughout the years, but it was really just a patchwork of policies until the major revision in February of 2012. All departments have been, or the policy has been reviewed with all departments, and we are currently spending more time reviewing the processes with departments. But just to give you a general sense of what the policy says, is basically any good or service and professional service in an amount of over $500 requires a purchase order. And that purchase order in the amount of $500 up through $10,000 requires a department head signature. For those items larger than $10,000 up to $30,000 requires the signature of the department head and the city manager, finance director, and city manager. And then for those items more than $30,000, basically those come back to council for review and approval. There are different thresholds for public projects. Again, $10,000 or less, the department head can approve. For $10,000 to $45,000, from $10,000 to $175,000, the city manager can approve those for public projects. And projects for projects more than $175,000, those come back to council. So those are basically the the approval authority is required for purchase orders, but again, purchases for items for more than $500 requires a purchase order. So we are working with departments on ensuring compliance with the policy. We are also looking at ways of streamlining the purchase order process using our current accounting module and see if that would facilitate processes and hopefully higher compliance. So we are working with all departments to ensure compliance with that finding that was noted by the auditors. The third item was capital assets inventory, and basically they just commented that there should be a physical observation of assets, and we did distribute to all departments a capital listing. Basically it said you have this many vehicles or file cabinets or items that had a value of over $5,000, and departments will be expected to review those items, do a physical inventory, and return that form back to the finance department. So that was an item that was commented on as well. They want to be sure that the assets listed within the financial statements are an accurate reflection of the assets that we actually possess. The prior comment, we had to update the report, and that basically dealt with purchasing policy again, but it was actually where the receiver report. So if you were to buy supplies from a local vendor, and when we receive that item, typically whoever received that item will open the box and tick off that yes, we checked that we did receive 3 binders and 2 calculators. So when they pulled an inventory of some of those packing slips, some of those were not received. However, we did confirm with departments that once they received that invoice, that somebody checked to ensure that those items were received. So we felt comfortable that departments were signing and approving the invoice for payment based on somebody within the organization signing and acknowledging receipt of those goods and services. So we feel that the comment under the receiver reports has been addressed. So with that, there are no costs in accepting the 2 reports mentioned, and all reports for the single audit are due by March 31st. If they are not submitted by that time, then the grant eligibility could be compromised. With that, I would ask for your acceptance of the reports. If you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to try to address them this evening.
Council, any questions?
Move to accept.
Second.
I guess there's no further discussion. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. Now we're at the appropriation of funds for special events, and that's the finance again.
Actually, Matt Boring, Administrative Analyst, will be presenting that staff report this evening. With that.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. Tonight, staff is recommending that council adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to appropriate funds that the city receives as revenues for reimbursement from a third party for city departments' involvement in special events. For some background, throughout the year, the city departments participate in community events that lead departments to incur implicit costs as well as staff overtime, for which the city is reimbursed by a third party. The reimbursements are collected as revenues by the city, whereas the expenditures are reflected in the individual department. So even though the city is being reimbursed for these costs, it is possible for the departments to go over budget if it participates in enough of these events throughout the year. This primarily affects the recreation and police departments who are involved in these events. The proposed change will allow the city manager to increase appropriations to the departments involved in these special events after the city has received reimbursement from the third party, and only in the amount received, so they can't appropriate extra money. The current method for departments to have their appropriations increased to offset these expenditures is to present a staff report and a supplemental appropriation for council for each event they're involved in. This has become a burden and an inefficient use of staff time. By implementing this policy, there will be no net financial effect to the city. The appropriations will only take place after they've been received by the city and only in the amount that the city receives as reimbursement.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Questions, comments?
Comment. Long time in coming.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
That's really, if you spend your money, you want your money back. Oh, that's true.
How often does it happen during the year?
Usually around 6 times a year.
Is that per department or 6 total annually?
6 total that supplemental appropriations are filed. There could be more if it's a small amount that the city hasn't gone over budget yet, that they just haven't filed for the supplemental appropriation.
Sometimes the
What-
department
what-
just absorb it within their budget.
What we found was that, for instance, on the Independence Day, there might be one staff report, but it could be different types of events that happen. So in theory, it could have happened several times. I think we actually did a count under the Independence Day celebration, and there was about 4 for just that one event. But then we came back and kind of cleaned up the whole thing. But historically, the Recreation Department or the Police Department would man a special event, and then we come back and they'd want money in their budget because overtime costs for supplies and materials, and it just seemed like the more efficient use actually was based on their request. I said, is it really an efficient use of our time to do these staff reports, or can we come up with a way? And Matt actually did some research on the government code section, and we thought as long as we establish the authority and some guidelines, that this would definitely be an acceptable process.
So is there any limitation on the amount of appropriation?
There isn't, based on staff's
They can only appropriate the amount that the city receives as reimbursement from the third party. So there's no set limit. It's only what the city receives as reimbursement.
Okay, so it is there. So there, it's self-imposed limit then. Okay.
So you're just asking to be paid back what you pay out,
Sure.
basically.
Oh, I understand. I understand.
I know, I just...
Remember, people complaining.
I know.
So
I was just simplifying it.
Yeah, the intent was basically to authorize the city manager to make an appropriation once the reimbursement was received. So even though the intent was if there was a third party that was billed for $5,000, that the appropriation would actually happen when the monies were received by the city.
How would that show up as part of the budget, I guess? Because you have a budgeted amount, and you're going to have an appropriation. How would a member of the public track that? How would council be aware of any supplemental appropriation?
It wouldn't be part of the budget process. If a department knew of something ahead of time, they would either incorporate it, if they already included a certain number of special events, that, yeah, this might include 1 or 2. But any additional ones would actually, there's an interdepartmental transfer form. Okay. We actually track each one. So it doesn't come back to council, but whenever anybody's budget is amended, there is a paper trail on that. And so if you wanted to look at any budget adjustments, it's definitely something that is marked within our accounting system.
So there is no year-end budget adjustment as part of the budget process?
It shouldn't be. It should actually happen as the event is occurring.
Okay.
It should be like debits and credits, is that the way it
It would be. It would be. So it wouldn't just happen at year end. It would happen if there was a special event this month and they sent out a bill and they collect that money. It would happen at that point in time for that month in. It wouldn't wait until at the end of the year and then all of them would be processed. It would happen as each event occurs and payment is received.
Any more questions, anyone? Have a motion? I'm sorry, read it.
Adopt a resolution authorizing the appropriation of funds and estimated revenue in the same amount of costs incurred by departments and reimbursed by third parties, which may occur throughout each fiscal year.
I move to adopt the recommendation.
Second.
Call for the vote, please, Liz.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powell?
Aye. Now we're at the Public Works Department, disposition of the J.C. Hall at 5th and D Street.
Am I supposed to wait for the drum roll, or is it? I apologize. Madam Mayor, council members, this item is to present options that have been considered in a recommended course of action related to the disposition of the former J.C. Hall, as you can see in the photo, which is located at the southeast corner of 5th and D Streets here in Galt. By way of history, the city did acquire this property some years ago after the Boys and Girls Club went out of business. It has not been used for a number of years, and it's in a state of advanced disrepair, and it's not getting better with age. In 2012, this past year, the Gathering Place Church offered the city a renovation project whereby they would secure some volunteer contractors, volunteer labor, and donations from Lowe's, Home Depot, and other types of businesses to try to do a fixer-upper to restore this for use as a community facility. So at that point, staff initiated, Bob was willing to look a gift horse in the mouth, and so we did. And as we got over and began through community development and public works staff inspections, realized that the structure had some serious needs. In January of 2013 at our strategic planning conference, we added a new objective that was to present on this no later than tonight for possible direction options for restoration of the hall and for use as a joint community center. We, based on our initial assessment, realized that there were some serious deficiencies, and so we, through the Community Development Department, commissioned an independent engineering firm who is associated with our plan check group to look at that and determine if staff's opinions were indeed correct, that there were actually some structural deficiencies that might make the building unsafe for rehabilitation. And indeed, that assessment concurred with staff's position that the removal of a non-bearing wall in the previous years and other non-code modifications to the roof support system did pose an actual safety concern for the building. Preliminary estimates just to correct those non-code modifications, put in a beam and some support columns and to tie that into the building's horizontal restraint system, just those repairs alone to be at least $25,000. At that point, we knew we were into it for more than putting some lipstick on the proverbial pig, and so we went back to the gathering place and indicated our preliminary findings and a list of items that we felt were needed, and they said that was way more than they had signed up for. They thought they could get out there with some volunteers and put some paint on and fix some drywall and repair a few items on the flooring and renovate the kitchen, and we'd be ready to go. So they basically withdrawn from the project. So just to sort of recap and give you a visual on some of there's a whole laundry list of items, the inadequate roof support, which was a safety item, being just one of a list of virtually all of the systems in the building that have to be restored. This picture is one corner of the building, doesn't even have a floor. The walls, wall boards have been removed, there's no insulation, the windows are broken, and that's kind of typical of what you can find as you walk through the building. Here's some more photos. This is looking back at that same area through what used to be a kitchen, and there are no longer finished walls, and you can see there's no appliances and there's no floor. The photo on the right is showing a defunct water cooler that is inoperative and would need to be just disposed of. But also the back porch there has no type of ADA ramp compliance, and you'll see in a moment that neither does the other entrance to the building. Upper left, you can see the front entrance, and again, there is a ramp there, but it does not meet ADA requirements for public assembly building. You can see on both sides of the front and what would be the south side of the building, the siding is compromised coming off. A little hard to tell in this picture, but the windows are broken. Most all of the windows that are not covered by plywood have been broken out. So it's pretty much a blighted structure. In the upper right, you can actually see sort of that beam that's sloping in from the left side of the picture is just cut off and resting on what was a replacement, sort of an arched ceiling. Well, that was actually part of a bearing wall support structure for the roof, and if you get on the north side of the building and look at the roof line, you can see a pretty good sag in the roof as a result of that removal of that bearing wall and the support to the roof. Lower left, one of the big good news, hey, look, there's ductwork. There was actually a central air and heating and cooling system, except the blower not shown in the picture are that the forced air unit and the heater are defunct and would need to be completely replaced, and the compressing unit for the AC has been stolen off the outside of the building. Well, presumed stolen. It might have been salvaged by the Boys and Girls Club, but it looks like it was probably a hit and run and copper somewhere at this point. Lower right, another look back at the kitchen. It used to be a commercial sink and other things there. It's been completely gutted, and don't know if that was somebody in the process of trying to do some remodeling before the Boys and Girls Club went out of the business, or if there have been folks in there stealing the appliances. I don't know the history of the building. Well, what are our options then? If we don't have a willing partner and volunteer groups, it's going to become a very costly money pit for the city. So we basically identified four fundamental options. To demolish the building would leave three sub-options. All right, if we demolish the building, do we keep the lot, do we sell the lot, or do we look for a public-private partnership to redevelop the lot? And we're actually recommending tonight option 1A, that we demolish the building and that we maintain ownership at this time pending development of a future site use plan, which could include a public-private partnership. So 1A sort of keeps your options open. Second major option would be to see if there's somebody else out there that's willing to invest what now looks like it could easily be $50,000 to $75,000 just to make this a habitable structure. And I might add that we believe it might be cheaper to demolish the building and build something new designed for a custom use rather than try to sort of continue to sink money into what appears to be a lost cause. Third option would be that the city invest in restoring the building. Again, we don't feel that would necessarily be the best investment of city funds. If you were to ask me, well, if we wanted to reinvest in making that site usable, my recommendation would be that we demolish the building and put in something custom. There are actually some nice modular that would be put on permanent foundations. I'm not talking about a mobile home here, I'm talking about a modular building that would be custom designed for whatever use the city might want to do, which could include a commercial kitchen or other things. Or we could certainly just sell the property as is and become somebody else's problem. Frankly, our concern with that is that it's already a blighted structure. It's been sitting there for years. You might sell to somebody who's speculative is going to wait for the market to rebound. It's, continues to be a blighted structure. This could go on for years waiting for the economy to return. And then somebody's still got to do something with a pretty much lost cause building. So, in conclusion, our recommendation to you tonight is that you authorize the city manager and public works director to take necessary contracting steps to demolish the building, provided that cumulative costs do not exceed $20,000, which is what we think sort of a threshold for value returned on the site would be, and that you provide a special appropriation of that $20,000 from your general fund reserves. And we would be happy to attempt to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, council?
Do we have to spend $20,000, or can we just let a bunch of teams of sleds go at it?
Well, actually, I meant to mention that on a previous slide, and so thank you for refocusing me. Included in our staff report, but I failed to mention is we would be looking, coordinating with the city police department and with Consumnes Fire to see if maybe we could let the police department practice kicking down doors and maybe walls too. Concern would be they don't bring the roof down with it, but then perhaps Consumnes Fire would like to practice a burn that might make it just a rubble cleanup operation, which would hopefully contain our costs without a lot of abatement requirements. And we have preliminarily reached out to Consumnes Fire to see if they would be interested. Some of the key players have been out of town when we solicited that inquiry, and we're waiting on them to return. But their training officer is certainly very interested, and I've heard indirectly that they may actually be willing to take care of all the permitting to do that when they do a practice burn. So we could cut our losses, but we're thinking that if we do have to have it assessed for hazardous materials, do some abatement, and then bring in a demolition contractor, that hopefully maybe with a practice burn we could keep this under this amount of money.
That could be option D.
Council, anything else? Okay.
I did have a question on, I think this property was originally purchased with Parks and Recreation funds, but I don't remember which fund counts. Whether it was 06 or one of those.
It was capital.
It was Parks Capital? Is there a reason that the Parks Capital wouldn't pay for the demolition rather than the city's general fund?
I think at this point, because when we first purchased it, we thought it was going to be used for some type of Parks and Rec program.
Right.
And we don't really know what the future is going to bring related to that, and those uses are more restricted related to the Parks Capital, and so if we end up putting more Parks Capital in there, then if we end up selling it or doing something else, then we've got to rebate
those monies back. And so at this point, because we haven't identified it as a future parks use, I wouldn't be comfortable recommending us using that fund for some speculative use in the future, whereas the general fund, we can use that money for any purpose. It's
Okay.
hard to justify right now using that fund when we don't have an identified Parks and Rec function or purpose for that property.
I guess my question is, along those lines, is if the property is subsequently sold, would the funds go back to general fund or would they go back to Parks Capital?
It would go back to both.
Okay.
So
there'd be a
depending on the
split.
value, it'd be based on the percentage that we have into the property, depending on what we get for the value.
Okay, that was it. That's all.
Okay, well, I do have an issue with it, and I've already talked to Jason about it. There is a family of cats there, and I'd like them to be trapped, neutered, and released again. See if we can find somebody that wants to take them, and if there are some kittens that are probably somebody might want to adopt. I don't know how many are there. I keep going out there, but I only see a few. But I don't think it would be very humane to demolish the building with animals in it. That's my opinion.
Trap the cats before we burn it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Of course, if you use it for police department, use a few flashbangs, that won't be an issue.
Uh-huh.
No, seriously.
They'll clear the rest of the house.
Those cats won't go near that place again.
So I'd like that to happen,
No
if it's
problem.
the rest of the council agrees.
Can we add that into there, make sure that it's done?
Yeah, make it a
please?
the cat to somehow trap them. I don't know who.
I got the driver.
Should
I know
we-
how to do it.
Oh, you get trapped.
I'm a pro.
We'll have to do it right before the work, because if we remove them, then the new family's gonna move in.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
You're gonna be busy trapping cats for a while.
I did it over at the over the other place.
They're probably the only thing keeping the bats out right at the moment, so.
Really?
Let's not even bring that word in.
Pretty spooky.
Okay.
Do you trust us, or do you want us to add that to the,
I want you to add it
I'd like
to
to
it.
have it added,
Okay.
yeah.
then I would move,
Want me to read the
Move.
recommendation? I'm gonna,
if you want.
yeah, I do. So the recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager and public works director to contract for services related to the demolition of the building located on 405 5th Street in Galt, formerly known as the J.C. Hall, provided that cumulative costs do not exceed $20,000 and a special appropriation of $20,000 to fund the demolition costs from the general fund reserves. And are we adding the cats in the rest? As amended with cats?
Cats removed.
Cats removed.
Prior to demo.
Prior to.
Right,
removal.
yeah, correct, yeah.
So,
So moved.
my motion.
Okay.
Second. Or whoever first and second.
I heard Barbara and Kurt.
Yeah, okay.
Is that what,
Yeah.
everyone else sees? Okay.
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Yes.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye.
Can I ask one question? Is there anything of historical value in there that we might want to save? Is there a sign or anything? Has anyone checked it out?
Oh, exactly.
We were just there yesterday, and I'm
There's
telling you, there's nothing.
Okay.
It's pretty gruesome in there.
Is
Yeah.
the one sign over the top still there, though?
Yes, there is a sign on the front. The sign might be its value. Maybe we could work with the Historical Society and,
Let's
see
see
if
if
they'd
there's
be
a
a
picture.
little beauty.
Barbara, see if there's a, oh yeah, there is a sign, oh, well, it says something.
I don't know.
It
that
says,
has
it says
historical
J.C.
value.
Oh, it does, yeah.
I don't know how valuable.
It could be restored, new varnish.
Yeah, absolutely, I think so.
We're happy to work with the Historical Society,
Where's
Cat
that one?
Society, and anybody else.
It's lost, it's like forever.
Yeah, it's good point.
It's not even a historical building.
Okay, so now,
Have to re-add that to the.
No.
No.
Can we just?
right,
Onward.
okay, I'm gonna adjourn the city council and convene to the Galt Successor Agency. Roll call, please, Liz.
Board members Singleton?
Present.
Payne?
Present.
Campion? Cruz?
Present.
Powers?
Here. Public comment,
I have no speaker sheets.
information consent calendar,
Approval of minutes.
approval of minutes, anyone?
Move to accept.
Second.
Call for the vote, Liz.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Or, I'm sorry, Board Member Singleton?
Aye.
Payne? Aye. Campion?
Here.
Cruz?
Yes, aye.
Cruz?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Department of Subject, AB 981 Bloom legislation to address the use of 2011 bond proceeds post-dissolution of redevelopment agencies. Mr. Berman.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is to support, as you indicated, AB 981. The recommendation is that the Council adopt a resolution supporting this piece of legislation, which was introduced by Assemblymember Bloom, who's out of Santa Monica in Southern California, regarding the use of 2011 bond proceeds. The Council, I believe, is well aware of the importance of the bond proceeds and the purpose in which those are going to be used, which includes the Union Pacific Railroad property, C Street, 4th Street, the parking lot areas, the entertainment complex, and so forth. Right now, we're in a holding pattern with the use of those bonds, the AB 1484 and AB 26. There's a lot of ambiguities on the use of those, and the Department of Finance has denied, in the latest round of ROPS 3 denied the use of those bond proceeds. The city did file a lawsuit against State Department of Finance challenging their denial of that item. That will likely take 4 to 6 months to resolve. So this is an alternative or a dual, I guess, way of getting to the same end, which is allowing us to use those 2011 bond proceeds. AB 1484 made it very clear that bonds issued prior to 2011, once cities got or agencies received their finding of completion, they would be allowed to use those bond proceeds. Ours were issued the beginning of March of 2011, so ours is kind of caught in limbo. So this piece of legislation makes it very clear that bonds issued between January 1, 2011 and June 28, 2011, agencies would be allowed to use those bond proceeds as long as they can be used for the purposes in which they were originally issued. And once the city receives its finding of completion from the Department of Finance, the city would be able to use those bond proceeds. So that would address all of the issues and the needs that we have as an organization. So the staff's recommendation is that the council officially take a stance and adopt this resolution supporting AB 981. We'll then transmit a letter with the resolution to our legislators, to the governor, to everybody that we can, indicating the city's position relating to this bill. Of course, there's no guarantee that the bill will be approved. It has been assigned to two committees, Committees on Local Government and Committee on Housing and Community Development. No hearings have been held yet, but we'll continue to update the council on the progress of this bill to see if it can make its way through the legislature. So we kind of have dual tracks right now in order to get us to be able to use those bond proceeds. One is through the litigation, the other through legislation. And so hopefully one of those areas is successful and we can proceed with those projects. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has.
Questions, council?
Is the League of Cities supporting this?
You know, I don't believe they've come out with an official stance yet on this. This was only introduced a few weeks ago. It's relatively new. I did receive a letter from actually another city, I believe it was West Hollywood, Southern California, encouraging other cities to take a positive stance. And so there has been some chatter and some responses from various redevelopment groups about the importance of this bill. But to my knowledge, the league hasn't taken a position, but I would imagine they would. There's no downside to cities or agencies on this. The only substantive thing for us that it really does is makes it clear that the intent or that we can spend those 2011 bond proceeds that are kind of in limbo right now.
Any more? Anyone else?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
Comment.
comment?
It still irritates me that the first two ROPS were approved by the Department of Finance, and then all of a sudden they flip a coin and they say no on the third.
True.
So it sounds like somebody up there doesn't know what they're doing and they've got their head where it doesn't belong. But you and I have talked about this and I'm all for it, providing it actually makes it to the floor.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay, would you read the
adopt a resolution of the successor agency to the former Galt redevelopment agency supporting AB 981 regarding use of 2011 bond proceeds.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Call for the vote, please, Liz.
Board members Singleton,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Campion,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Howard.
Aye. And I'm going to adjourn the Galt Successor Agency, and I'm going to reconvene to the Galt City Council, and we're at the City Clerk's report.
Just a couple reminders. The Beautification Committee meeting is this Thursday at 3:30 in the City Hall Community Room. On March 28th, the Commission on Aging will meet at 5:15 in the California Room at the Parks and Recreation offices. On April 1st, the City Council Youth Committee will meet at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. That takes us to our next City Council meeting. Just a reminder, our Shredded event, Community Shredded event is on April 7th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I would like to ask Council, check your calendars if you have them. If not, you can get back to me tomorrow regarding a joint City Council Planning Commission meeting on April 11th at 6:30 regarding the housing element.
He died. Yeah. What time, 6:30?
April 11th at 6:30. And you can send me an
We-
email tomorrow or whatever.
We do have for council members Payne and Cruz, that's the same day we have the SEDS committee meeting scheduled, but it's earlier in the day. It's from 2 to 5, so give you an hour and a half for dinner.
You. Joint Planning Commission.
Eating, talking, taking us out to
Joint
dinner.
Council
There you go.
Board. It's actually their normal meeting date.
My calendar.
Okay. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, hold on.
Sure, badge.
Do a little tap dance or something.
Okay.
Okay.
You can take some notes.
Okay, comments by staff?
It's just a warning. We're heading into budget season here for staff, and so if we're a little crankier than normal, you'll understand why. At least the rest of the staff. I tend to make them cranky during budget season, but so we're March and April, and then we'll be back to the council with some recommendations in May regarding the budget. So
They're smiling now.
Goes fast.
If Jason's cranky, it's because of his age. He turns 40 tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Mr. Baby.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy birthday.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Thank you. And that's all for me. Any staff have any comments?
Staff? Oh, you want to just say hello? We haven't heard anything from you tonight.
Should say happy birthday.
Paul, you're supposed to lead the singing for Jason.
Okay, City Council, comments? I'll start with Barbara today.
Just mention that at the local government commission dinner, Galt was highlighted by SACOG, and they gave us lots of compliments for letting them use us as a guinea pig. But anyway, it was nice that Galt got recognized, and it's always good. On the other end of that is I met with some of the residents out in Meadowview, and of course we are all aware of the shooting that happened on Saturday night. And I would just say that I think the city needs to take particular attention to try to reassure some of the citizens. One man said he was ready to move out of the neighborhood because he was concerned for his children. And, you know, I told him that that could happen anywhere. And you don't move, you know, you fight for it. But I think it would be important for the city to take extra steps to try to reassure the people, because Meadowview has always been, or not always, but has been an area that we've tried to, I guess, revitalize. And so I think it's important. We've made a lot of progress. Even the Beautification Committee gives awards for the best looking yard. So we want to make the extra effort to not lose what we've gained out there. And that's my comment.
Councilmember Singleton?
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Cruz?
Well, it's my turn?
Uh-huh.
Okay. She threw me a curve. Actually, nothing other than I just wanted to say one of the biggest reasons that I love living in this community was made available to me, or was shown to me about 2 or 3 days ago when, out of the blue, going to the grocery store, forget a bag, hanging on the
Shopping cart.
thank you. Getting punchy, it's
Sounds
getting late.
like dictionary.
She's good at that. Anyway, the point is, just pointed out to me by another citizen, and what happens? Instant conversation. I love living in this town because people are so open and honest. Yeah, we have that 1% that Bill and his crew has to deal with, but for the most part, I really love this little community.
Great. Well, I think that's why we're all here.
That's right.
It's a great American little town, Galt. I'm just going to want to say a few things about Independence Day. I'm just going to do a little spiel each week, or I'll tag team with Councilmember Singleton. We have added a 5K run in honor of Officer Ton, and we are going to have a parade shortly after that. So those are my first spiels this time. If you're interested in running, we're going to have that information out pretty soon, right, Armando?
Yeah, we're working on the flyer right now just to finish it up, and we have a meeting on Thursday morning to finalize the route.
Yeah.
Did I forget you, Kurt?
I didn't have anything anyway.
Oh.
That's what threw me.
I would
sorry.
let you know.
And we're also having a parade. We're going to start off with a children's parade, followed by an adults parade or big people's parade. But we're hoping it is on the 4th of July this year, so that's kind of exciting. So nobody has any reason for leaving town on Thursday, July 4th. And find some runners so we can get some money for our memorial for Officer Ton, and decorate a float so you can be in our parade. And with that, we're done.
That's who's reading my mind as well.
So that's why I went to town.
Hey, I was just joking about the flashbang.
What?
I was just joking about the flashbang.
We'll be here after lunch. Oh, right. I think it was crazy then. Yeah, I'm jury. Hold on, I gotta stop.
Hey, Mark, you got one more?
I got more than 1 minute.
Yeah, you do, huh? Don't have to go home.
I'll go home.
Haven't yet.
Trying. I've never been sitting on bad stuff.